The lack of food, unpredictable weather, and rising prices are radically changing our grocery stores. In this video, we will explore 8 popular products that may completely disappear by March 1st, 2025, and explain the threats behind these disappearances. The first product is canned tuna. Rising fishing costs, unpredictable fuel prices, and ongoing shipping disruptions are pushing many species of canned tuna to the brink of extinction by March 1st, 2025. Numerous reports across various platforms indicate that the frequency of empty shelves in certain coastal regions is increasing, partly due to fishing fleets facing restrictions from stricter environmental regulations and a widespread labor shortage. Tuna stocks in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans show signs of depletion due to overfishing, leading to stricter catch quotas. Several global organizations advocate for stricter measures to protect dwindling fish populations, complicating companies' ability to catch enough fish for mass production. Moreover, inflationary pressures force producers to reduce production volumes or, in some cases, completely halt operations when profits decrease. Another factor affecting the supply chain is the rising cost of packaging materials, especially aluminum. As metal prices continue to fluctuate, some factories operate below capacity, reflecting difficulties in securing enough raw materials for tuna packaging on store shelves. Experts analyzing trends in food shortages emphasize the importance of stockpiling high-protein products like canned tuna, but the window for this may quickly close if the product remains scarce. Reports indicate that dedicated people have already begun purchasing large quantities, leading to spontaneous buying in some supermarket chains. Industry analysts predict that if fuel prices remain high and fishing regulations continue to tighten, canned tuna production may become unprofitable. The combination of these problems may lead to a decrease in availability or the complete disappearance of tuna from many stores. Some small suppliers have tried to switch to alternative types of fish, but market acceptance remains uncertain. Environmental groups also warn that tuna populations require a long recovery period, meaning that supply may not rebound even if economic conditions improve. Several videos online detail alternative methods of obtaining protein, including home canning of locally caught fish or exploring plant-based substitutes. Uncertainty leads to further speculation that once the shelves of canned tuna are empty, they may remain empty for a long time. Observers recommend those relying on canned tuna for emergency supplies to consider diversifying their stock with other long-lasting protein products, combining dried legumes, freeze-dried meats, or vacuum-packed fish. With proper storage, households can tackle upcoming problems without relying solely on canned tuna supplies. The time frame for the last purchase is narrowing. There is an opinion that if you see canned tuna for sale right now, you should stock up for several months, as periodic shortages may turn into a permanent deficit due to decreasing fish stocks and rising production costs. As for coffee, farmers around the world face climate anomalies such as extreme heat waves, unpredictable rainfall, and increasing pest invasions. These factors reduce yields, raise production costs, and cause market speculation. Economic studies show that small coffee producers in countries like Brazil, Colombia, and Vietnam suffer from water shortages and rising fertilizer prices, often linked to global supply chain issues. Numerous videos from agricultural channels confirm that coffee plantations are experiencing an increase in fungal diseases, such as coffee leaf rust, which further reduces production volumes. In the United States and other major consumer countries, coffee roasters face high import costs due to ongoing delivery delays, container shortages, and rising fuel prices for freight transport. Some coffee distributors sometimes prioritize premium varieties, leading to price increases and making lower quality varieties hard to find. Meanwhile, consumers who rely on affordable brands are increasingly facing shortages. Producers who previously supplied large volumes of grains are now forced to cope with a sharp decline in harvests, leading them to focus on more profitable specialized blends. This shift exacerbates the shortage of more common coffee varieties typically used to fill supermarket shelves at affordable prices. Analysts monitoring the community preparing for food crises note that coffee is one of the key stockpiled goods, as many people consider it essential for maintaining mental activity and a comfortable routine during times of crisis. However, with the increasing delivery restrictions, restocking coffee supplies becomes an increasingly difficult task. Several viral videos showing empty coffee shelves, especially in large city supermarkets, highlight the scale of this problem. Alternative drinks resembling coffee and made from chicory root or roasted barley began to gain popularity among certain circles, indicating that if real coffee beans become unavailable, some consumers may switch to these substitutes. The combination of declining yields, high transportation costs, and widespread disruptions in distribution networks is bringing coffee closer to disappearing from the shelves of traditional retailers. Some experts predict that by the beginning of 2025, prices for whole and ground grains may reach a historical high. Producers lacking adequate infrastructure to withstand environmental changes are already reducing their operations. Interviews with coffee importers reveal an uncertain future, many of them stating they cannot guarantee stable supplies in the coming years under current conditions. As a result, various communities have started hoarding coffee, leading to further panic and purchases. This could become a self-fulfilling prophecy where empty shelves become the norm, a long-term reality if steady demand exceeds limited supplies. Serious coffee enthusiasts and survival planners recommend vacuum sealing or freeze-drying coffee beans for long-term storage. Although these methods help preserve flavor, they do little to solve the underlying problem of scarcity caused by environmental changes and logistical challenges. If trends continue unchecked, coffee may indeed disappear from regular store shelves, forcing people either to give it up or seek out local specialty shops that can still provide limited supplies. The third point is wheat-based products. Wheat crops face unprecedented challenges due to prolonged droughts, political instability in key exporting regions, and rapidly rising fertilizer prices. Many regions of North America, Eastern Europe, and Central Asia report unsatisfactory harvests, and farmers are struggling to meet domestic needs, let alone international demand. Moreover, conflicts near major wheat production areas disrupt transport routes, resulting in supermarkets experiencing reduced flour supplies and rising bread prices. Lawyers warning of food shortages state that the stockpiling of grain, pasta, and other wheat products is likely to increase once people see empty shelves. Global articles emphasize that wheat has become a strategic commodity, often subject to protective export policies that restrict sales abroad to maintain local stocks. When countries impose trade restrictions, global shortages intensify, triggering a chain reaction. Bakeries, pasta manufacturers, and food processing companies rush to secure sufficient stocks of wheat or flour to maintain operations. Many small businesses cannot cope with rising prices, forcing them to either switch to alternative grains or suspend production. YouTube channels dedicated to self-sufficient farming have recorded a rise in the number of people grinding flour from stored wheat grains. This method helps preserve freshness but requires whole grains initially. If large-scale commercial wheat supplies become scarce, the population's ability to obtain wheat berries will likely decrease, making this decision niche for dedicated planners. Since wheat is a central element of many diets, even minor disruptions in supply lead to a noticeable rise in prices for a wide range of products, from breakfasts to baked goods. This accumulation effect combined with inflation means that by the year 2025, basic wheat-based products may become luxury items in some markets. Scenarios about impending food shortages often focus on wheat as a vivid example of the vulnerability of the global food chain. Experts warn that drought cycles may repeat, reducing yields and depleting irrigation resources. Moreover, modern wheat varieties require significant amounts of fertilizers to achieve high yields, but fertilizer prices are rapidly rising due to increasing energy costs. Some wheat farmers are reducing their acreage or switching to less fertilizer-intensive crops. The resulting shortfall cannot be quickly compensated by alternative producers, and therefore, entire supply chains remain under pressure. Many families, people who are used to saving by relying on cheap bread and pasta, may face serious problems when stores begin to remove popular wheat-based products from their shelves. Considering that there are already sporadic shortages in the bakery sections, it is quite likely that some staple wheat-based products may completely disappear from major supermarkets, triggering a new wave of panic buying. Those who want to be prepared often turn to vacuum containers with wheat flour or experiment with gluten-free flours made from sorghum, millet, or legumes. Although such substitutes may meet basic nutritional needs, they cannot replicate the familiar taste and texture of wheat, making the loss of wheat-based products a significant change in everyday eating habits. As for almonds and other nuts, the drought and extreme heat in states like California have severely hampered their production. Almonds, pistachios, and walnuts are among the most significant commercial nut crops, but they also require substantial water resources, which is becoming an increasingly challenging task for producers. Water restrictions during a severe drought force farmers to uproot trees or leave them unharvested, leading to lower yields and rising nut prices. Analysts studying food supplies for emergencies note that nuts are an excellent source of healthy fats, protein, and micronutrients, so their disappearance will limit available nutritious snack options. The irrigation crisis is at the heart of the shortage problem, as key nut-producing regions experience record temperatures and low snow levels in watersheds. Articles from agricultural programs report that pollination issues also play a role. Beekeepers who once provided hives for large almond orchards now face rising costs and difficulties in maintaining healthy colonies. The decline in bee populations directly affects the level of nut pollination, reducing final yields. Since the profit margin on nuts can be minimal, some orchard owners switch to crops less dependent on stable water resources, such as olives or certain citrus varieties. This trend undermines the future of sustainable almond, walnut, and pistachio production. Meanwhile, corporate buyers who rely on regular nut supplies for packaging nut mixes or plant milks must compete with individuals creating personal food reserves. Growing demand faces falling supply, and shelves can quickly empty as soon as the fear of shortage arises. YouTube discussions on food stockpiling strategies highlight that nuts, while nutritious, have a shorter shelf life if not stored properly. Decay is becoming a pressing issue, so it is necessary to vacuum seal or freeze nut supplies for maximum shelf life. However, if the abandonment of orchards becomes widespread, supplies of fresh nuts could nearly run out by the beginning of 2025. Some specialists are researching drought-resistant varieties of nut trees, but the large-scale introduction of new varieties takes years, if not decades. As a result, the short-term prospects for the availability of nuts look bleak. The situation appears grim. Sharp price jumps often become the first signs of trouble, and when the cost of nuts begins to rise, frugal buyers completely abandon them. At a certain point, it becomes unfeasible for retailers to continue selling these products, especially if supply disruptions hinder regular restocking. Experts warn that once this threshold is crossed, nuts may disappear from regular stores. Gourmet shops may still offer small batches at high prices, but the average buyer will face an increasingly limited selection. This problem also triggers a chain reaction in the healthy snack sector, as alternative protein bars with nuts face production difficulties. Widespread issues in obtaining almonds or walnuts can significantly change people's approach to daily nutrition and long-term emergency preparedness. Fifth is honey and beekeeping products. Honey reserves have become a powerful indicator of broader ecological stress and potential food shortages in the near future. The mass death of bees caused by excessive pesticide use, habitat destruction, and varroatosis leads to a catastrophic decline in honey production. Videos from beekeepers across continents constantly show struggling hives with decreasing honey volumes. Professional beekeepers are struggling with rising costs of managing hives, medications, and specialized feed, while consumer demand for raw and organic honey is increasing. Climate change is disrupting flowering seasons, causing bees to often struggle to find enough nectar, leading to smaller harvests. In some regions, consecutive years of poor yields leave local producers unable to fulfill orders. Supermarkets usually rely on large commercial honey processors that mix honey from different sources to maintain stable supplies. But as local supplies diminish, processors seek honey from other places, often facing high import costs from foreign beekeepers. This cycle leads to higher retail prices and a decrease in impulse purchases, ultimately reducing turnover as fewer customers are willing to pay high prices. Stores may cut honey offerings, freeing up shelves for more profitable items. The problem of food shortages approaching America raises discussions that honey may gradually disappear. First, specialized local brands will vanish. Then traditional brands will appear on shelves irregularly. Communities focused on emergency preparedness emphasize the importance of honey as a sweetener that never truly spoils if stored correctly. It can remain edible for decades, making it an excellent candidate for any emergency pantry. However, obtaining large volumes of high-quality honey may become a challenging task if the beekeeping industry continues to decline. Some fear that by 2025, the availability of honey may become so limited that prices will reach levels unsuitable for most household budgets. Alternative sweeteners like maple syrup or agave nectar can spark increased interest, but each has its own geographical and climatic limitations. Analysts also express concern about the chain effect on cultures dependent on pollination due to the decline in bee populations. Farmers face difficulties in producing fruits, vegetables, and nuts, exacerbating food shortages. Beekeeping products, besides honey, such as beeswax and propolis, are also becoming scarce, affecting various health and cosmetics industries. At farmers markets, you can still meet small beekeepers who maintain strong local hives, but their limited resources do not allow them to meet the broad needs of consumers. As a result, large supermarkets may remove honey from their shelves when they cannot ensure stable supply volumes. Those who want to include honey in their emergency supplies or daily menu may need to buy it directly from local beekeepers or invest in personal hives if permitted by regulations. However, the combined impact of diseases, pesticides, and climate change makes independent beekeeping a challenging task. Overall, the disappearance of honey from store shelves is not only possible, but increasingly likely if current trends continue. As for high-quality olive oil, the production regions in the Mediterranean faced waves of extreme weather conditions, including droughts, late frosts, and intense heat waves that destroy olive groves. Large exporters like Spain, Italy, and Greece have repeatedly reported a decline in yields in recent seasons, resulting in a lower supply of high-quality extra virgin olive oil on the global market. Various forums on food shortages emphasize that quality olive oil is a staple in healthy eating, offering beneficial fats, vitamins, and antioxidants. However, due to ecological cataclysms, grove owners face diseases like Xylella fastidiosa, which can destroy entire plantations. Retraining the trees often takes years before they begin to bear fruit, so these regions may not recover quickly. Prices for premium olive oil have already started to rise, and many retailers are filling their shelves with lower quality blends or substitutes containing seed oils. This practice undermines consumer trust, as concerns about authenticity lead some buyers to completely abandon store-bought olive oil. Delivery issues exacerbate the situation, port congestion, and reduced freight transport, increased logistics costs. Many agricultural commentators on YouTube warn that drought cycles in southern Europe show no signs of weakening, indicating that future olive harvests may continue to decline. Meanwhile, inflation severely impacts operations with gardens, increasing the costs of labor, processing, and packaging. In-depth analyses from trade publications show that some producers plan to switch to more drought-resistant crops, as maintaining olive groves under such conditions becomes unprofitable. If this transition accelerates, the shortage of genuine olive oil may deepen significantly. Some suppliers mix refined olive oil with lower quality oils to stretch their supplies, but this tactic leads to legal disputes and brand damage. As soon as consumers lose trust, they may choose entirely different vegetable oils for cooking. A product that thrives on the perception of authenticity, like olive oil, cannot easily cope with such scandals. If supplies continue to shrink, grocery stores may decide to stop selling pure extra virgin olive oil and instead offer blends under their own brand, simply labeled as olive oil. Those who seek to keep olive oil in their stock for cooking or health may face rising prices and limited supply, especially in large supermarkets. People stockpiling food in case of shortages often freeze or store olive oil in the refrigerator to extend its shelf life, but this method requires reliable electricity and free space. Even with the best storage methods, if the harvest in the gardens continues to decline, new supplies may simply not reach the market once the current stocks are depleted. Experts predict that by the beginning of 2025, several major brands may either switch to heavily blended oils or leave the market altogether. This loss will leave only small boutique producers, who will be the sole source of real olive oil at prices unaffordable for most families. Thus, a trip to the supermarket for affordable olive oil may become just a memory for many. As for seafood, some species like shrimp, cod, and salmon face serious threats to their existence. Overfishing has depleted natural stocks, while fish farms suffer from viral outbreaks, algal blooms, and climate changes affecting ocean temperatures. This combination of problems disrupts both wild fish supplies and farmed seafood. Store shelves are already showing gaps in popular fish varieties, and some restaurants are reducing the number of seafood dishes to cope with unstable supplies. When fishing industries implement seasonal closures to restore fish populations, it leads to a sharp rise in retail prices, often doubling or tripling the cost of previously available species. Trade journals covering the fishing industry note that illegal fishing undermines environmental protection efforts, making stock assessments unreliable. The problem becomes cyclical as fish populations do not recover to levels sufficient for large-scale fishing. At the same time, farmed salmon and shrimp face harsh criticism regarding their environmental impact and disease management, leading to stricter regulations in some countries. Although these new rules promote ecological balance, they limit production capacities and increase compliance costs. Consumer demand remains high, fueled by the perception of seafood as a healthier source of protein. As a result, inflation of prices can happen very quickly once harvest volumes decrease. Stockpiling fresh seafood in case of food shortages is difficult because it spoils quickly, so people preparing for food scarcity heavily rely on frozen or canned goods. However, if such products become scarce or unaffordable, families may turn to alternative sources of protein, such as poultry or plant-based products. Some YouTube channels showcase aquaponic systems for breeding species like tilapia, but this niche solution requires technical knowledge and constant energy supply. Considering the constraints in delivery and logistics, large retailers may face significant costs to maintain fish counters if supplies remain unreliable. In this case, certain types of fish may completely disappear from supermarkets and become available only through specialized local fish farms or boutique distributors at inflated prices. Analysts expect that resource shortages will worsen in densely populated coastal cities that were once renowned for their abundance of seafood. The shift to fish raised with sustainable aquaculture practices, such as catfish or trout, may become the new norm, displacing more well-known species that will no longer be viable. Discussions about preparing for food shortages often mention canned salmon or sardines as compact sources of protein, but they too may become scarce if producers cannot ensure stable supplies of raw fish. Their disappearance may coincide with other disruptions in packaging materials affecting everything from labels to cans. Once production costs exceed consumers' willingness to pay, these products risk disappearing from the market. Ultimately, this will lead to beloved seafood becoming niche products or disappearing, drastically changing the assortment in grocery stores and forcing consumers to turn to alternative products that can be produced consistently in changing climate conditions. Cocoa and chocolate are also at risk. Chocolate depends on cocoa trees that grow in tropical climates, mainly in West Africa, Latin America, and parts of Southeast Asia. Changes in rainfall patterns and sharp temperature fluctuations make it difficult for small farmers to maintain healthy cocoa crops. Additionally, cocoa plants are vulnerable to diseases such as black rot and frost rot, which can destroy the entire harvest if not managed carefully. Many farmers are already facing inadequate infrastructure and limited access to quality fertilizers and pest control methods. As global demand for chocolate remains high, any shortage in cocoa production directly leads to rising prices. Supply chain issues are exacerbating the situation. A shortage of shipping containers and delays at ports are increasing the time needed to transport cocoa beans from farms to processing plants. Observers in the industry emphasize that large chocolate manufacturers often rely on just-in-time strategies, leaving little buffer for supply delays. Discussions on social media, including those from well-known bloggers highlighting global goods, reveal concerns about forced labor and exploitative working conditions in some cocoa production regions. Ethical sourcing programs aim to address these issues, but they require financial investment, which further strains the budgets of small farmers. Low profitability may force farmers to switch from cocoa to more sustainable or profitable crops like rubber or palm oil, further reducing global cocoa supplies each year of unstable harvests. Companies producing chocolate warn of potential disruptions that may lead to reduced product sizes, decreased variety, or the complete disappearance of certain types. Chocolate treats made with cocoa are viewed as a preparation for crises during food shortages. Chocolate is a high-calorie product that can boost morale in tough times, although it is not a staple like wheat or canned proteins. Nevertheless, many people try to stock up on chocolate bars or cocoa powder. Storing chocolate presents certain challenges, as it can melt or lose its flavor with temperature fluctuations. In the event of a possible cocoa bean shortage, producers may reduce the cocoa content in products by adding more sugar, artificial flavorings, or plant-based cocoa substitutes. This practice may preserve the appearance of chocolate products on shelves, but it worsens the actual chocolate flavor. In times of serious shortages, large supermarket chains may completely stop selling premium chocolate, focusing instead on mass-market products that require lower cocoa costs. Over time, real chocolate may become a rare commodity, available only in specialty stores at inflated prices. Content creators addressing this issue often mention that the global chocolate industry has been facing sustainability problems for several decades. The increasing climate problems and unstable working conditions threaten the production and distribution of real chocolate. Articles from various trade associations predict a significant cocoa shortage in the near future, unless large-scale reforestation and agricultural technology improvement projects are quickly implemented. This timeline ominously coincides with forecasts that by the beginning of 2025, some chocolate products may be in short supply, making it unprofitable for retailers to sell them. For those who cannot imagine their life without chocolate, experts recommend buying cocoa powder and storing it in airtight containers in cool, dark places. However, even this measure does not guarantee availability if the raw material disappears from international markets. As a result, the reduction of real chocolate bars may become another stage in the broader picture of food shortages, reflecting how complex and fragile supply chains can collapse under the influence of economic and environmental factors.